Hello everyone, my name is Katya and let me tell you today about user research that makes difference. And why do we even talk about this today? User research is on the rise. From 1983 to 2017, the UX profession grew from 1,000 professionals to 1 million. Can you imagine? According to Nielsen Norman Group. From 2017 to 2050, they forecast that we will have strong 100 million of representatives. So therefore, today I'm gonna tell you why this profession is booming, why insights are so important, and in what situations do you need to apply what type of research. And I will give you the real examples of the research that we do at our company. So who am I? Again, my name is Kate, and I'm head of user research department at Preply. And Preply is a global marketplace for online tutoring. And in case you want to learn any language in the world, one-to-one with some professional, and you want to improve your accent or whatever, you go to our website, book a lesson, and enjoy the ride. So let me give you some perception of what was going on at Preply when I joined 3 years ago. So when I joined, our product teams were developing functionalities for a really long time. So we were deciding what product squad will own what area of our product, and usually they would kind of work on it for 3 months. So respectively, the prices of such functionalities were really kind of high, and the ideas that teams had in their mind for these functions and features, they were brought up by the team members. They were not validated with users. And in the end, the adoption of these features were sometimes low. Well, not sometimes, the majority of the times. And our North Star set wasn't even impacted. And on the contrary, sometimes we had situations when the GMV was even lower than before. So we were kind of reflecting and looking back at what we're doing with the leadership team and thinking how we can improve to not spend so much time for development, so much money, and in the end, to not receive negative feedback from our customers and to move the needle in terms of North Star set. So what we did is we've had lots of strategic sessions with our external consultants, with the whole leadership board, and we've decided to adopt 2 different frameworks. The first one is A/B testing framework, the one that is targeting time. So our benchmark for now is to move from 3 months of development to 1 day. So now we're trying to launch 1 A/B test a day. Sounds crazy, but we're on the way to achieve this goal. And human-centered design that says that you need to involve users throughout the whole process of feature development. And we've started off with learning who is our user base, with doing segmentation. Because before, when we were developing features, we were like we are thinking that we're building this functionality for these people, they like this, they like that, they would love our features. But in reality, it appeared that we have 22 different micro personas. They have different behavior. They have different understanding of what's the ideal product for them. So for example, we have parents that are looking for teachers for their kids. We're having career builders that want to improve their language to succeed in their meetings, cooperation with customers. We're having people who relocate, they want to assimilate in their environment, refugees that need language to assimilate as well, and other different segments. So this was really interesting. However, when we started doing research and receiving insights, it wasn't that easy to make sure all of them are validated in the product and people take action on them. So together with the leadership team, again, what we did is that we've kind of executed on partnership program. We decided on the company level that every PM in the team will have an OKR that is called Improve Customer Development in X team. In this particular example, this is a screenshot of our software that we use to track OKRs, CRO team, conversion rate optimization. And the manager, Sergey, that works there as a PM, committed to key results, speak to at least 5 customers, in his case, students per month. And it actually showed a really good results because in that way, PMs and all stakeholders are super engaged. They talk to users, they hear their voice, they hear their pains, and they're like, okay, let's execute on this. That's a really nice insight and stuff like this. So I strongly recommend you to try this out. So after this, since speaking to users have become part of our OKRs, we focused on structuring our research methods. And I'm gonna talk to you about the top examples that we use at Preply and in what situations. So this metric shows that we use qualitative and quantitative types of research. And when we want to discover new things, when we want to understand the whys behind something, we use user interviews and field studies, aka shadowing or contextual inquiries, to understand behaviors, because what people do is the best predictor of future. We do formative usability tests. So we observe how users interact with our products, and we ask questions to know more. We also do summative usability testing. This is also usability testing, but statistically significant. So we do it without moderation via some software. Session recordings and heat maps, really nice methods, and I will tell you more about it later a bit. Search logs also, really kind of not so frequently met in my personal experience, but also interesting. And surveys, quantitative type of research that serves you as a validator of all your findings, as a very good strategical tool to measure product market fit, to measure brand awareness, NPS, and make some actions. So let's start off with user interviews as a really frequent method at Preply that we apply in our product development. So the problem that we were trying to solve at Preply was we wanted to understand how we can target our mobile application, because it's a really young one, and we just had a fundamental functionality there, but nothing kind of special that can differentiate it among competitors. So we had a hypothesis that if we add their flashcards, so it will be a vocabulary feature in the way of flashcards, so our users would kind of see the value there, and they will install application more, they will be more engaged because they will use it all the time, and it will be positive for our brand and for all our metrics. So while researching this question, we've been conducting user interviews, and we've been asking whether they have this problem of learning new words, how they do it, what are the substitutes that they use to solve this pain. And what we found out is that the pain actually exists. The tutors do share new words with students. So it was like a green light, okay, let's develop this feature. However, we've learned that they share these words all over the place, either in Preply chat or in Google Documents, or they attach documents and share them in chat during conversation, during exercising. That shows that there should be a centralized place for that, which will be a vocabulary feature in our mobile app. But the most interesting finding here was that as initial hypothesis was to add flashcards, we've heard that flashcards, according to our users, is not a very useful type of practicing new words. So they were saying that life hack of learning new words is if there is a context. If you use it in a joke, at work, with your friends, in real life, remembering words is very easy, but just memorizing them using flashcard doesn't work. We were super surprised. So instead of the original flashcard hypothesis, we decided to add a feature of adding words manually, which really encourages the student to build their own library of words. And in addition, we've added exercises with examples of real context to help them learn them. Also, was it really interesting to learn what kind of substitutes do they use to solve this pain at the moment. You see them here, Duolingo, Quizlet, Anki, and other applications. And we've learned about pros and cons of each of these applications. And that's how we've kind of have already some plans on how to improve our current functionality in the app. And we've also learned that people do pay for these applications. So the demand exists, and it's also the demand that is backed up with money, which is a really good sign. So this is it about user interviews. Another type of really insightful research is field studies. Why I've inserted this image here. So whenever our research team conducts field studies, I always tell them, imagine yourself as a production crew of a documentary, because you need to shadow customers without extra interruptions. You need to note their goals, their interactions, actions, everything that surprised them, everything that causes some difficulties. So our recent experience conducting field studies was related to our search page. You see it here depicted on the right side of the slide. And what problem we were solving using this research is that we wanted to understand how our potential customers will interact with our filters. Here you see them. and with the tutor cards. This was done for conversion rate optimization team, so they would know how to build a roadmap of A/B tests for the next quarter. And we also had a hypothesis that as our target audience is just learning the language, probably the UX copy might be complicated, so we also wanted to test this hypothesis. So this is the affinity diagramming, the type of analysis of field studies. How it's done, we've been noting observation, each observation per each sticky note. And by observation, again, I mean quotations, something that you've noticed surprised you or caused pain for the user, their goals, actions, and everything, but not your personal interpretations to avoid biases. And affinity diagramming says that you need to cluster all these observations into different groups. And in our case, we've clustered according to the time. So to then have a chronological order. And in the end, we depicted everything in CGM, Customer Journey Map. On this stage, the team was super engaged, and they've used dot voting technique to choose what observation to take further into action. So each team member had 5 dots. They put them next to each sticky if they thought that it's a very useful and impactful insight. And then they would kind of have a roadmap of insights that they would need to brainstorm how to act on further. So the whole company had this summary of this research, and let me guide you through the observations and how they were used in the product. So first of all, you see that the chronological order is here. We started from need awareness, other ways of satisfying the need, trigger, discovery, prep, choosing a tutor, trial lesson, and next steps. Different teams found something useful for their particular user journey. As we've been working for the conversion rate optimization squad, they found lots of interesting insights in a column, choosing a tutor, this one. So let's start with the first insight that we see here, check a few reviews. Means that we've realized that almost all respondents were paying attention to reviews in the first place. So it gives us an understanding that reviews is a very important strategically part of the search that we need to work more. And observation sounded like, I also read not only good reviews, I also like to read bad reviews. And for me, when I see that the website does not provide bad reviews, it's a bit scammy. So what we did, we've added filters to reviews, so users would be able to read different types of reviews to increase kind of credibility of our website. We've also heard some feedback that when students were kind of going through reviews, they were surprised that reviews were written in different languages, but because the website is global and students come from all over the world and they type in their own language. So we've added auto-translate button to allow students to auto-translate all the reviews in their native language. And this experiment was statistically significant in terms of all our North Star set. So it showed us the importance of using this kind of insights. We've also noticed here, we've highlighted in red, that users were not able to find specialty filters. So for example, I want to find a teacher who will prepare me for IELTS, TOEFL, and this kind of type of exams. And it wasn't really interesting because you see here, we actually do have this filter. It's called specialties. But as we received this feedback, we've realized that they do not simply notice this filter. And our hypothesis is because it's located not in the main line. So what we've moved it to the first line of filters to increase its usage and to create the behavior we want to have on the website. We've also received feedback that the variety makes it hard to choose, meaning that we have a lot of different cool tutors on search, and it's really hard to choose among such a good number of tutors. So what we did is we've launched A/B test to test how the limitation to 10 tutors on search will impact our North Star set, and we're currently observing the behavior of students. There were also different types of observations, like they were saying that this card, tutor card, was super wordy and it was really messy, so they were not able to kind of see the main information from it. So what we are doing now is we are trying to kind of brush it up a bit and to do it minimalistic. We've also heard, this was my favorite interesting insight, that students didn't even expect that this tutor card can be clickable and openable. So they were just clicking on some words, places, and in the end, what we did is we've made this whole area clickable to give an opportunity to students to see a lot more information about our tutor and make a good decision. So this is it about field studies. Let's move to usability testing. Usability testing is also really important to make the product easy to use. One of our Preply values is simplicity. However, as we're trying to experiment a lot and to launch many A/B tests, it's really hard to test everything. So this is how we filter what we need to test. So we try to test everything that should be really critical, that it should be right, but on the other hand, it's complex to design right. So we need to test this kind of functionality. So let's start with formative usability testing. It's a qualitative type of testing, and we use it just as a discovery tool to discover if there are any pains or anything that we need to develop more. So the recent example of Preply was when we had a problem that we were trying to solve. We have our video platform. You see it here. We call it Preply Space. And we wanted to know how we can improve its adoption rate by watching what people do there. So our hypothesis was that some functionality might not be clear, and maybe something is missing that we need to develop. So here are the findings. So we've made sure that there are no issues with some functions like mute and mute, permission request, turn camera on and off, and others. However, there were some issues with other functions and they are really important, like minimize video and floating video. So when we were given tasks, can you minimize the video, for example, and can you return back to the video resolution, to the full screen video resolution? There were some issues. So users didn't know what to click, how to return back, and they sounded really frustrating. The same with floating window. So what we've first of all improved onboarding of this feature. So we've added labels and icons. And before the lesson starts, now we have a separate window that says, this is minimize video feature, this is floating window, this is how you can use them, and this is where you can find them. So for sure, people will see the screen and they will understand how to use this. And we already hear really positive feedback from our customers. We've also discovered a really interesting thing when we've been probing the entry point to our video platform. We wanted to make sure there are no issues to even enter the video platform. But apparently there was. The way users can enter video platform, they need to go to My Lessons page, so the page where they manage all the lessons. And there is a CTA called Enter Classroom. And not everyone was noticing the CTA, which is really crucial. So now we're working on improving copy of this banner and on improving contrast to create kind of to give a perception of primary action we want them to take here. And there was also interesting insight that some respondents, where we asked them to return to My Lessons page from video, they were clicking to Preply logo. And it was incorrect because Preply logo terminates the session. So we've added tracking to Preply logo to validate this issue of termination of sessions in the middle of the class, accident one. This is how we've been using insights from our formative usability testing. And now let's move to summative usability testing. Really great tool to receive statistically significant results if your company is data-driven and likes to hear these words. What problem we've been trying to use in this case? At Preply, sometimes if we have time, we're developing a couple of designs to kind of, as human-centered design framework says, the more prototypes you have, the better solution you will eventually suggest to a user. So in this case, our designer from supply team that is working to improve the experience for our tutors developed 2 different prototypes to suggest them weekly lesson booking option. So for example, if I'm a tutor and I want to book lesson for my students every Tuesday at 3 p.m., I can use this function. So they were different in terms of UI, and wanted to test which one is better in terms of performance metrics, usability performance metrics. And we also had the hypothesis about one particular field that sounds like time to schedule, and we showed them the amount of hours, prepaid hours left with a particular student, so the tutor would know how many lessons they can schedule upfront. So while conducting the research, what we found out is that the prototype B performed better comparing to prototype A, I'm sorry, in terms of different metrics. It had higher completion rate of every mission. It had lower misclick rate of every mission. Less tester dropped off from the expected pass, and it was easier to use according to the feedback you see here. So the percentage is higher of satisfaction on the prototype B. And as for the hypothesis that we had about understanding time to schedule, we validated this hypothesis. So the text was not really clear to our tutors. So now we are trying to rephrase it a bit to make it easier for them to understand. Now, another type of research is session recordings and heat maps. Not really frequently used in other companies, as far as I know, but we like to use it properly. How you can use this kind of research? You just record what users do on some specific page without any qualitative feedback. We do it with the help of Hotjar software. So what problem we were solving it properly with the help of this type of research? We have calendar functionality for our tutors where they can set their availability and where they can set their time offs. And we've been, our hypothesis was that the UI of this functionality is not really comfortable for tutors, because we've been receiving quite a lot of complaints from our customer support about this page. So we were trying to understand how tutors were setting their availability, how they manage time offs to make proper UI changes. And what we found out is that tutors do have different patterns when they set up their availability, because currently, as you see here, calendar works in a way of dragging time slots visually inside the calendar view. So based on Hotjar recordings, we can say that tutors have different patterns when they set up their availability. So we've noticed that they were either dragging slots or either clicking or trying to manually add one by one or copy pasting. And of course, it causes some issues because initially it was developed just for a dragging pattern. How did we act on this? By changing availability settings from calendar view to fields with time slots, as we do during the sign-up process. We simplified availability settings and improved the speed of operating with it. Plus, we've made the UX more kind of aligned because they see the same patterns throughout the whole their journey. And there was also tiny kind of observation, but still we've noticed some frustration about colors of time slots in calendar. Some are colored in gray, some in white, depending on availability, and they didn't understand why. So we've added an explanation there. Another type of research, before I've mentioned that it's pretty rare because not all the websites have search engines. But at Preply, we do have one, and we have it in our product called Preply Library. Preply Library is the Preply learning plans with different units. And our methodology team is working on these units. So they are creating different materials for English learners to improve their language. So we've added this search functionality so users would be able to find materials based on topics they're interested in. So we've been just kind of analyzing what were the keywords in this search to make a decision what topics to add there. The most interesting result here was that future perfect tense didn't produce any results. That meant that the first priority for methodology team would be to add this topic to this learning plan. Other topics were like famous people, celebrities, actors, slang, level, idioms, placement tests. So now our methodology team has a clear roadmap of topics that they need to add to our learning plan with the priorities. And surveys, I think it's the very frequently used type of research at Preply because surveys are applied to a really broad range of users and it makes results statistically significant. So there is an example of applying surveys at Preply was when we redesigned our My Messages page for tutors. where tutors can chat with their students, schedule everything and stuff like this. And we wanted to gather feedback regarding the redesigned experience, because when we've launched this redesign as an A/B test, the North Star set showed flat results. However, support and metrics were a bit positive. So we just wanted to understand how to move forward, either to kill it or to iterate or just to scale. So what to do? So we've launched a survey asking how tutors would just evaluate their experience with the new My Messages page. There was a 5-point scale, and as a result, you see here, we've received 4.2, which is pretty okay. However, it's not 5. And we've been wondering why it's not 5. So we've added open-ended question to elaborate what was the reason for their rating. And tutors were saying that there was a really obvious pattern, that they all were asking for search functionality inside My Messages page. So they were saying, wow, the page is lovely, everything's great, but how can I find the specific student, and how can I kind of make sure I'm not scrolling endlessly among the huge list of my students just to text some person. So what we've did, based on these insights, we've decided to scale to 100 users this experiment, and currently we're designing the search functionality for users. So this is pretty much it on the types of research and the real examples from Preply. I just wanted to say that it really impacted our current product releases. So now we're kind of more learning and iterating on these learnings. So usability objectives are met and users are happy, and the North Star set is impacted positively. So I can say that we grew 2x year over year, and we have an uplift in conversion to paid 90.7%, which says that it really works. So can add nothing more here. To follow up, this is the metrics with types of research that we use, with main questions that we try to answer with their help. For you, just to kind of memorize, for me it works well because I have a visual memory. And key takeaways from all my speech is that I encourage you to involve users in product development, because you can save time, money, and increase the probability of moving the needle. You need to involve stakeholders in the process, because our practice showed that it really helps to kind of boost engagement inside your team, and to choose the right type of research depending on the main problem you want to solve, because in that way, your insights will be more reliable and you will have more actionable items. So thank you so much for listening. Hope it was useful, and I'm really glad that you guys have chance to ask me lots of questions.